Life has a way of throwing unexpected challenges our way. You may have encountered situations that seemed like complete dead ends, relationships that fell apart, opportunities that slipped through your fingers, dreams that never materialized the way you hoped. It's easy to think, why is this happening to me? Did I miss my chance? Am I being punished for something? But let me assure you, what you see as a setback is often a divine setup for something greater. What feels like a loss is really positioning you for a comeback that you couldn't have orchestrated on your own. Think about the moments in your life when things didn't go according to your plan. Maybe you didn't get the job you desperately wanted. Maybe someone walked away and it broke your heart. Maybe you worked tirelessly on something only for it to fail. In those moments, it's easy to feel defeated, discouraged, and even abandoned. But here's what you may not realize. Just because it didn't happen your way doesn't mean it's not going to happen at all. God's plan is often different from our own, and His ways are higher than ours. That door that closed, it wasn't rejection, it was protection. That delay, it wasn't a denial, it was preparation. That disappointment, it wasn't a punishment, it was redirection. Take Joseph, for example. He had a dream that he would one day be a ruler, but before he saw that dream come true, he was betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and thrown into prison. If anyone had a reason to give up, it was Joseph. If anyone could have thought, my life is over, it was him. But what Joseph didn't see was that every setback was actually moving him closer to his destiny. If he hadn't been sold into slavery, he wouldn't have ended up in Egypt. If he hadn't been falsely accused, he wouldn't have been thrown into prison. And if he hadn't been in prison, he wouldn't have met the man who would eventually introduce him to Pharaoh. Everything that looked like a setback was actually positioning him for the greatest comeback of his life. He went from the prison to the palace in a single day because God was working behind the scenes the entire time. The same is true for you. Just because things don't look good right now doesn't mean they're not working for your good. What you see as a detour is actually the exact path that's leading you to your breakthrough. It may not make sense in the moment, but trust me, you're not stuck. You're not forgotten. You're not left behind. You are being positioned for something greater than you can imagine. Sometimes the reason for the setback isn't even about you. It's about who you're becoming in the process. See, if Joseph had gone straight from being his father's favorite son to being a ruler in Egypt, he wouldn't have been ready. He needed to go through the hardships, the betrayals, the setbacks, not because God was punishing him, but because God was preparing him. The prison developed his character. The betrayal strengthened his faith. The waiting deepened his trust. By the time Joseph stepped into his destiny, he wasn't just gifted, he was also ready. You may be facing something right now that feels unfair. Maybe it's something you didn't see coming, a sudden loss, an unexpected challenge, a closed door. You're wondering, why is this happening? But what if instead of asking why, you started asking, what is this preparing me for? What if instead of seeing it as a roadblock, you saw it as a stepping stone? Let's talk about failures for a moment. So many people let failure define them. They try something, it doesn't work, and they assume they're not good enough. But failure is not a sign to stop. It's a sign that you're growing. Some of the most successful people in history went through major failures before they ever saw success. Walt Disney was fired from his first job for lacking creativity. Oprah was told she wasn't fit for television. Thomas Edison failed over 1,000 times before inventing the light bulb. What if they had stopped at their setback? They would have never reached their comeback. Your story is not over. The chapter you're in right now is not the conclusion. What you see as a setback may be the very thing that propels you into a season of blessing, growth, and breakthrough. You have to trust that what's ahead of you is greater than what's behind you. So instead of getting discouraged, start getting excited. Instead of feeling defeated, start preparing. Because your setback is not the end, it's the setup for something better than you ever imagined. Life has a way of making us question our strength. We go through challenges, setbacks, and struggles that feel overwhelming, and at times it seems like we just don't have what it takes to make it through. Maybe you're in a season right now where you feel exhausted, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. You've tried, you've prayed, you've fought, but the weight of your circumstances keeps pressing down on you, making you wonder, do I really have the strength to keep going? But let me remind you, you are stronger than you think. You see, we often measure our strength by what we feel in the moment. If we feel weak, we assume we are weak. If we feel overwhelmed, we assume we can't handle it. But feelings are not always the best indicators of strength. A tree standing tall in the middle of a storm may sway, it may bend, but its roots are deep enough to keep it from falling. You may feel like life has thrown storms your way, but deep inside you have more strength than you realize. David, before he became a king, was just a shepherd boy. No one saw him as strong. When the mighty Goliath stood before the Israelites, challenging them to a fight, everyone looked at David and thought, he's too young, he's too small, he's not a warrior. Even King Saul told him, you're not able to go against this giant. But David knew something they didn't. Strength isn't always about size. It's about the heart, the mindset, and the power working within you. David stepped onto the battlefield, not with a sword or armor, but with faith, courage, and a simple sling and stone. The very thing that seemed insignificant in his hands became the weapon that took down a giant. The same is true for you. You may look at your situation and think, I don't have what it takes. I don't have the resources. I don't have the strength to fight this battle. But what you need is already inside you. You have a resilience that you haven't even tapped into yet. You have overcome things before that you thought would break you, and you will overcome this too. One of the greatest tricks of the enemy is to convince you that you're weak. He'll whisper in your ear, you can't do this. You're not strong enough. You're not capable. But do you know why he does that? Because he sees your strength even when you don't. The very fact that you're still here, still standing, still pushing forward despite everything that has tried to stop you is proof that you have a strength inside of you that is greater than the opposition against you. Sometimes strength doesn't look like what we expect. We think strength is about never feeling afraid, never getting tired, never wanting to quit. But real strength isn't the absence of struggle. It's the ability to push through even when you feel weak. It's waking up in the morning and choosing to keep going, even when you don't feel like it. It's showing up for your family, your dreams, your purpose, even when the odds are stacked against you. Strength is not about being unshaken. It's about standing firm, even when you feel like falling. Think about the times in your life when you thought you wouldn't make it. Maybe it was a painful breakup, the loss of a loved one, a financial hardship, a season of deep anxiety or depression. Back then, you probably thought, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. But look at you now. You made it. You're still standing. What once felt impossible is now a part of your past. And if you made it through before, you can make it through again. The key is to shift your mindset. Stop telling yourself, I can't handle this. Instead, start declaring, I am stronger than I think. I have everything I need to get through this. I am built for this battle. When you change the way you speak to yourself, you awaken the strength that's already inside you. You see, pressure reveals strength. Diamonds are formed under pressure. Muscles grow through resistance. Strength isn't developed in times of ease. It's developed in the moments when you feel like giving up but choose to push forward anyway. Every challenge you face is not meant to break you. It's meant to build you. So if you're feeling weak today, I want you to take a step back and remind yourself of everything you've already survived. You are stronger than you think. You have more inside of you than you realize. And when you tap into that strength, nothing can hold you back. So many times in life, we find ourselves fighting battles that we were never meant to fight alone. We wake up feeling anxious, overwhelmed, and burdened by the weight of our struggles. Whether it's a financial difficulty, a health challenge, a broken relationship, or a dream that seems out of reach, we carry these battles on our shoulders, trying to figure everything out on our own. But what if I told you that the battle you're fighting has already been won? What if, instead of stressing and striving, you could walk in confidence, knowing that victory is already yours? Think about the Israelites when they stood before the Red Sea. Behind them, the Egyptian army was chasing them down, and in front of them was a body of water that seemed impossible to cross. In that moment, fear took over. They started panicking, thinking that they had no way out. But what they didn't realize was that God had already made a way. They just couldn't see it yet. The sea wasn't there to stop them. It was there to reveal the power of God. The moment Moses stretched out his staff, the waters parted, and what seemed like a dead end turned into a highway to freedom. The same is true for you. That battle you're facing right now, it's not bigger than God. It may look impossible. It may feel overwhelming, but behind the scenes, things are already shifting in your favor. Just because you can't see a way doesn't mean there isn't one. The answer is already on the way, the breakthrough is already in motion, and the victory is already yours. One of the biggest mistakes we make is trying to fight battles that we were never meant to fight in our own strength. We take on burdens that are too heavy, and we try to figure things out with our limited perspective. But when you understand that the battle's not yours, it's God's, you stop striving and you start trusting. You stop feeling like you have to have all the answers, and you start resting in the truth that the one who created the universe is fighting for you. Look at the story of Jehoshaphat in the Bible. He was the king of Judah, and one day he received news that a massive army was coming against him. He had every reason to be afraid. His army was outnumbered, and in the natural there was no way they could win. But instead of panicking, Jehoshaphat did something powerful. He turned to God. He prayed, "Lord, we don't know what to do, but our eyes are on you." And do you know what happened? God responded, "Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the battle is not yours, but God's." Then something incredible happened. Instead of sending his soldiers out to fight, Jehoshaphat sent out worshipers ahead of the army. Can you imagine that? Instead of going into battle with swords and shields, they went in with praise. And as they worshiped, God caused confusion in the enemy's camp, and they ended up destroying themselves. Without lifting a single weapon, Jehoshaphat and his people walked into victory. That's the power of surrender. When you stop trying to control everything, when you let go of fear, when you choose faith over worry, God steps in and fights for you in ways you never could have imagined. The battle isn't about how strong you are. It's about how strong your trust is. The enemy wants you to live in fear. He wants you to feel like you're always under attack, always struggling, always fighting. But when you know that the battle is already won, you stop living in defeat and start walking in victory. Think about a sports game where the outcome has already been determined. Imagine watching a recorded game where you already know your team has won. Even if at some points in the game it looks like they're losing, you wouldn't be worried because you already know how it ends. That's how it is with your life. You may be in a tough season right now, but your victory has already been secured. That's why you don't have to live in anxiety. That's why you don't have to lose sleep over things that seem out of your control. When you understand that the battle is already won, you don't waste your energy fighting unnecessary fights. You don't let fear dictate your actions. Instead, you move forward with confidence, knowing that everything is working together for your good. So the next time you're faced with a challenge, remind yourself, I don't have to fight this battle alone. The victory is already mine. The answer is already on the way. My breakthrough is already secured. I will not stress. I will not fear. I will stand in faith, knowing that God is fighting for me. So often in life, we feel like we have to chase after the things we want. We stress over missed opportunities. We worry about being in the right place at the right time. And we fear that if we don't make everything happen ourselves, we'll miss out on what's meant for us. But here's the truth. What is meant for you will always find you. You don't have to force it, manipulate it, or live in constant worry. The right doors will open at the right time, the right people will come into your life when they're supposed to, and the opportunities that are meant for you will never pass you by. Think about a farmer planting seeds. He doesn't go out every day and dig them up to see if they're growing. He doesn't panic if he doesn't see results right away. He knows that as long as he has planted them in good soil and as long as they're getting water and sunlight, growth is happening, even if he can't see it yet. The same is true for your life. There are seeds you've planted, dreams, prayers, hard work, and even if you don't see anything happening right now, that doesn't mean nothing is happening. In the right season, what's meant for you will come to life. Sometimes we get frustrated because things aren't happening on our timeline. We see other people getting the job, the promotion, the relationship, the success, and we wonder, when is it going to be my turn? But comparison will always rob you of peace. Just because someone else is being blessed doesn't mean your blessing isn't on the way. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it's not going to happen. Your story is unfolding exactly the way it's supposed to. Take David, for example. He was anointed as king when he was just a young shepherd boy. But did he step into the throne immediately? No. He went back to the fields, tending sheep, waiting, preparing. There were years where it probably seemed like nothing was happening. He had to go through battles, challenges, and setbacks. But every experience was shaping him for the moment when his destiny would be fulfilled. If David had tried to force his way to the throne before it was time, he wouldn't have been ready. The delay wasn't a denial, it was preparation. That's why you don't have to chase after what's meant for you. When you are aligned with your purpose, when you trust the timing of your life, things will unfold naturally. You don't have to push down doors that aren't opening, because the right doors will swing open effortlessly when the time is right. Now, that doesn't mean you just sit back and do nothing. It doesn't mean you don't put in the effort or take steps toward your dreams, but it does mean that you don't have to live in stress and anxiety, wondering if you're going to miss what's meant for you. What's yours is already set aside for you. Think about relationships. So many people spend years chasing after love, trying to force connections that aren't right, settling for less than they deserve because they're afraid of being alone. But when you trust that the right person will come at the right time, you stop wasting your energy on things that aren't meant for you. You stop chasing and you start attracting. The right relationships, the right opportunities, and the right blessings will flow into your life effortlessly when you're ready for them. Sometimes the reason something isn't happening yet is because there's still something you need to learn, something you need to grow through, something you need to become before you can step into what's meant for you. Every delay is serving a purpose. Every closed door is protecting you from something that isn't right for you. Every detour is leading you to exactly where you're supposed to be. Think about a butterfly. Before it can fly, it has to go through the transformation process inside the cocoon. If you try to break open the cocoon too soon, the butterfly won't be strong enough to survive. It has to struggle to develop its wings, to build the strength it needs to fly. The same is true for you. What's meant for you is coming, but you have to go through the process that prepares you for it. So instead of worrying, start trusting. Instead of chasing, start believing. Instead of feeling like you have to control everything, start letting go and knowing that what's truly meant for you can never be taken away. It will find you at the right time, in the right place, in the right way. All you have to do is be ready.